Hi, welcome to the Revelation Bible Study. We are discussing Revelation chapter 14 today. I just want to remind you that where we are in the timeline of things in the book of Revelation, we are still between the sixth and seventh trumpet judgment. And we're taking a pause, or John is actually taking a pause in the action, and he's zooming in on details of events. So last week we looked at chapter 13, and there was in this pause we studied the Antichrist and how he will be known and what his activity is. And this week we are going to be looking at very closely at the 144,000. Now we know that the 144,000 were sealed at the beginning of the tribulation period, and they were witnesses for 3.5 years. And then their number was completed, and today we're going to look at a description of who these 144,000 were and what their ministry is. So if you will look with me, let's start with verse 1. Then I looked, and behold, the Lamb. Now we all know the Lamb is Jesus. The Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven, and this is what the voice sounded like, and this will be familiar language to you. Like the sound of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. We heard that same language in Revelation 1 as we saw a description of Jesus Christ. We saw it again in Revelation 4. And the voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they, the 144,000, sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. And no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. So first, in verse 1, we see that when Jesus comes back and his feet touch Mount Zion, the 144,000 are going to be with him. So that's the first view that we get here. And written on their name, on their foreheads, is his name and the name of the Father. Then John talks about what the 144,000 do in heaven before they come back with Jesus in verse 2. He heard the voice from heaven. So the 144,000 are before the throne. Remember, we're between the sixth and seventh trumpet. So at the midpoint of the tribulation, their number, the number that are martyred, is complete. Remember earlier in the book, we saw where the souls under the altar were saying, "How long, O Lord, until you avenge our lives?" And he said, wait a little while. Here's a white robe. Wait a little while longer until the number of your brethren is completed. And that's a reference to the 144,000. At this point, at the midpoint, the 144,000 are martyred. The same time frame as the two witnesses dying. So over the course of those 3.5 years, the 144,000 are being killed for their faith, for their testimony. But at the midpoint, all 144,000 are gone, and so are the two witnesses. So the gospel now has been completed by human men that are on the earth. And they are all before the throne, and they're singing a song, and it's a new song. And they're before the 24 elders, which is, we believe, the bride of Christ. And it may not be. There's no way to know exactly who the 24 elders are. It may truly be elders of Jesus's church. So it could be completely different than the bride of Christ, but they represent the bride of Christ. So before the throne of God, and before the four living creatures, and before the elders. So we're believing that we are all present at this singing. No one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. That's how we know their number is completed. These are the ones who have not been defiled with women. That's literal. That means that they have abstained. They did not marry. When they were sealed and sent by God, they did not marry. Their mission was to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. So they had not been defiled with women, for they had kept themselves chaste. That means they had kept themselves virgins, but it also means they had kept themselves from idols. They had kept themselves physically and spiritually pure. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. When it says first fruits, now Jesus was first fruits among believers who were to be resurrected. And then we who, then believers, after Jesus was resurrected, those who died will be raised as first fruits at the rapture. And now again, we have a group who will be first fruits among those Jewish people who are saved during the tribulation. And that can include Gentiles. Anyone who responds to the gospel message will be saved. But these have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to men. These are the first fruits of the martyrs, And we've had martyrs, in the past, but these are martyrs during the tribulation. They're first fruits. And no lie was found in their mouth. Now, compare this to everything that we've studied in the behavior of mankind during the end times. And we've looked at the book of Jude, and we've looked at Matthew 24, and we know that lawlessness increases, and that the love of the brethren grows cold, and that everyone is selfish and looking out after themselves, and there's no truth in them. But we see here, there's no lie found in their mouth. And that is a total contrast to the Antichrist that we looked at last session. They are blameless. The word blameless doesn't mean perfect. It means without defect. They are grounded in the truth. They are clothed with Christ. No spiritual defect. Verse 6, and I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven, having an eternal gospel to preach to those who live on the earth. Now, isn't this interesting? The 144,000 and the two witnesses have prophesied for 3.5 years and have proclaimed for 3.5 years the gospel of Jesus Christ, and gives everyone an opportunity who hears to be saved. This angel is flying in mid-heaven and is preaching an eternal gospel to those who live on the earth. Now, we have said all along that when Jesus was speaking in Matthew 24, he said that the whole earth would hear the gospel, and then the coming of the Son of Man would occur. And so we have felt all along that the rapture can't happen until all the people groups of the earth have heard the gospel. And we believe that we have accomplished that as far as we know. They may not all have a Bible translation, but they've heard. Missionaries have been sent and have been able to, in their language, express the gospel of Jesus. He even says, his word says that man is without excuse because the gospel is written in creation. In his glory is seen everywhere in creation. However, just in case, this angel proclaims the gospel, and it says, to those who live on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. So just in case there's anybody who hasn't yet to hear the gospel, this angel will accomplish that. It may also be a gospel of judgment because it's an eternal gospel. Our gospel was a gospel of grace, the grace and love of Jesus Christ and the hope that we have in eternal life with him. This angel will be preaching that eternal gospel, the truth that we all live in eternity, but in a different place. We have a choice between heaven or hell, and that lake of fire is a real place, and heaven is a real place. And he, the angel, said with a loud voice, "Fear God." This is the gospel he preached. Fear God and give him glory. Why? Because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him. That him is Elohim. It represents the Trinity and the Creator God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and the springs of water. Remember what they're experiencing right now on the earth. The waters have turned bitter. The waters have turned to blood. Fresh water is hard to come by. And so he's promising them a gospel and saying, worship the Creator who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and the springs of waters. Now another angel, a second angel, follows. And this angel is saying, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who has made all the nations drink of the wine of the passion of her immorality." Do you see the contrast between the springs of fresh water and then the wine of the passion of her immorality, the yuck? They've drinking of immorality, but he's prophesying the fall of Babylon. Remember, we're between the 6th and 7th trumpet. We're at the midpoint of the tribulation. Then another angel, a third angel of the same kind, that another means another of the same kind, a third one followed them. So these are in rapid succession, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast in his image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and brimstones in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." So here we see another contrast. You'll drink of the wrath of God. Worship. Look back again at the eternal gospel in verse 7. The instruction is, fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. This is the last effort for anyone to be saved before that door is slammed shut. He who worship him, worship your Creator, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and the springs of water. And then the second one says, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great." And then the third one says, if anyone worships the beast and takes the mark on his forehead or his hand, he will drink of the wine of the wrath of God. So now's the warning. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. They have no rest day and night, those who worship the beast in his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Those who take the mark of the beast, whether for convenience or for true worship, true devotion, regardless of why they take the mark, they will be sealing their eternal fate. There's no turning back. Once you take the mark, and that's what the angels are warning about. Once you take the mark, and it is a conscious effort, no one will be tricked into taking the mark. It will be a conscious decision to take this mark. And he's saying, this is what's going to happen to you. If you take the mark, you'll be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. That's in the presence of Jesus. It doesn't mention in the presence of us, the rest of us who are in heaven. The angels and Jesus will be witnesses to this. And the smoke of their torment, this lake of fire, burns forever. It burns forever. They feel the heat of it, but they're never burned up because they have bodies that never die. The smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day and night. Think of the contrast for those who are in heaven. Come unto me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Heaven is a place of peace and rest. Those in the lake of fire have no rest day and night. Those who worship the beast in his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. So here we see a distinction, just in case you think you can take that mark but not really worship the beast. He says, those who worship the beast in his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the perseverance of the saints. Here's another definition that's very clear-cut. What is the perseverance of the saints? He talks in chapter 13, we saw, to persevere. The saints should persevere. Well, here is the perseverance of the saints who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. Those are the overcomers. Those who know the truth, and no matter what punishment or no matter what threats come against them, they stand firm. They hold strong to their faith. Remember, they've witnessed the rapture. They've witnessed the disappearance. They've heard the gospel from the 144,000 and seen the 144,000 killed. They've also seen the two witnesses not only killed, but their bodies lay in the streets for 3 days. And life returns to them. They saw them resurrected. So they know that there's a hope. And then they know that heaven is real. And they've seen the life return to these two witnesses who were killed and them ascend to heaven. Everybody on earth sees that. So they know that there is hope in this gospel, and they're able to persevere. They're able to stand firm because of what they've seen and because of what they've heard. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on." Yes, says the Spirit, so that what? They rest from their labors, for their deeds follow with them. See the contrast? There's rest promised for those who are martyred for the Lord. So even in that second 3.5 years, remember that the last session we saw that the Antichrist will take his seat and declare himself God, and he will be enraged. He's going to be so enraged that he's going to go after all the believers, and they will be killed. And the believers will not take the mark or worship him, and the penalty for that will be death. So a voice from heaven says, "Blessed are those who die in the Lord from now on." So from that midpoint to the last 3.5 years of the tribulation, they are blessed who are martyred. And they will rest from their labors, and their deeds, their good deeds, will follow them. Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud. And sitting on the cloud was one like a son of man, having a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, "Put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come, because the harvest of the earth is ripe. Then he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped. This is the last of the believers on earth. The others, anyone who is alive and remains, will be in Petra, we believe. And another angel, this is angel number 5, comes out of the temple, which is in heaven, and he also had a sharp sickle. Then another angel, a 6th angel, the one who has power over fire, came out from the altar, and he called with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, "Put in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth." The vine of the earth is a reference to Israel, because her grapes are ripe. So the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters from the vine of the earth from Israel, and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Israel was referred to as a vine planted to bear fruit, but it failed and had to be cut down. So we're talking about this gathering, this sickle swinging on the vine of the earth, which is in Israel. And when the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters from the vine of the earth, he threw them into the great winepress of the winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and the blood came out from the winepress up to the horses' bridles. That's 4 to 5 foot deep, for a distance of 200 miles. This is the literal distance between Basra and Megiddo, and this is where Armageddon will take place. So these last sickle gatherings are very confusing. The one like a son of man who's sitting on a white cloud and swings his sickle, and the grapes, let me go back to it. Put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come, because the harvest of the earth is ripe. The harvest, the fruit, what there is to gather that's good. The earth was reaped. It's finished. Those would be the last believers. I've heard some theologians preach that this and teach that this is a second rapture, because it's a reaping. But I have a hard time with rapture. First of all, rapture, we've already discussed, the word rapture is not in the Bible. The word harpazo is that word, and it means to catch up, a catching up of the saints. And it's described specifically in 1 Corinthians 15. And it's a catching away of the saints. So I'm not sure that this is another catching away of the saints. That same word is not used here, but I have heard well-known, very sound, solid teachers say that this is another rapture. It is a harvest. It is a harvest where believers are going to be killed. Remember that the Antichrist is killing all believers at this point. Anyone who doesn't have the mark will be killed. There's going to be a great massacre when they don't take the mark. There will be a great massacre. But their souls, the Antichrist will kill them, but their souls will be reaped and taken to heaven at this time. Their souls will be reaped. I want to just take a moment here. To me, this is one of the most difficult passages in Revelation. and I don't have all the answers. This is where it's so important to dig deep. And if you get any insight at all, I welcome your feedback. I welcome your interpretation and your translation of these passages. But do some research. Look at what people like Tim LaHaye or Jimmy Evans or Greg Laurie have to say on this subject, and see how they might give further insight. You may also have other teachers of Revelation that you believe are sound, and it's good to go to these commentaries and see how they interpret it and what they say it is, so that it makes sense, so that it lines up with other scriptures. The important thing to note is, when it's all said and done, the Antichrist kills anyone who's not a believer. Jesus saves the souls of all those who are believers. And anyone who dies in that last 3.5 years for their faith will be blessed. There's a special reward for those. And for us, I think, not the greatest thing, but the saddest thing is that the number of those who are saved, the door is shut at this point. Everyone's fate is sealed. You're either a believer or a non-believer. And if you're a believer, the Antichrist is going to kill you, but Jesus will save your soul. But no more will be saved after this point. The angels have shared the gospel to the whole earth, and they've also warned everyone of the judgment that is coming if they follow the Antichrist. If they take the mark, they seal their doom. And the doom is very clearly spelled out in this chapter. The lake of fire that burns forever and ever, and the smoke of their torment goes up before the angels and the Lamb forever and ever. There is no rest. There is no peace. No rest. No peace. But if you go to heaven, there you will find rest. There you will find peace and incredible, incredible love. So I pray that as you study Revelation 14, that you realize the heaviness of this subject, that this really is a very, very heavy chapter. And there are a lot of cross-references. And so I hope that you have the workbook and that you're doing the cross-referencing, that you're seeing the difference in all the different harvests, the proof of the vine. You know, Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me bears much fruit. So I pray that you are one who is bearing much fruit. I pray that you are abiding in the vine. Jesus is the vine. So I pray that you are abiding there. But it's also a reference. Remember, Jesus is the vine, and he was Jewish, and we were grafted in to the vine. The vine is Israel, or the branches are, I am the vine, you are the branches. The branches are Israel, and we were grafted in. Our branch, being Gentiles, were grafted in, so that we're all part of the vine now. But the whole story of the tribulation is all about regathering Israel, all about salvation to the Jewish people and anyone else who will hear and obey the gospel. So even though it's really, really heavy, and it's sad to think that there is coming a day when the door is shut. Yes, the door is shut. And now the judgment comes. But after the judgment, there is hope, because Jesus is coming back. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time for Revelation chapter 15. Y'all be blessed. Have a great day. Bye-bye.